There's a very silent kind of pain in this preparation journey where you're doing every single thing right, but nothing seems to work out. You try to stay strong and confident, but I know after every mock, you feel a little bit left behind, right? I know that you tell yourself that it is just a mock, it will pass, but you fear what if this becomes your reality on the NEET day, right? So, if you're someone who is carrying this pain alone, then I just want to remind you that you are not alone. Every single student faces this. It's completely normal and it is not a dead end. We can come out of this tunnel and see light. So, this video is to address this issue. Hi, I'm Sneha, presently a second year MBBS student from College of Medicine and JNM Hospital, Kalyani, West Bengal. Let me start this video by talking about a very important issue, that is of a passive study trap, which many of you might have already fallen into but you don't know. So, what is a passive study trap? So, let me make you all understand by an example. Say, for instance, you are traveling with someone, you're going to a certain place whose route and direction you are not aware of. Okay, the person who is accompanying you is absolutely well aware of the route and the person takes you there. You just mindlessly accompany the person. What will happen is that the next time when I tell you to go there alone, 99% of the chances are that you cannot go there. You have to take external aid, ask people, use Google Maps or something of that sort, but you cannot go there alone because you just passively accompanied that person. In another case, if you go with the same person, but then try to remember certain landmarks, and when you reach there, recall the entire route that what, I had reached this crossing, and then this was the signboard that I saw, this was the building that I saw, I kept the building to the left, and then I reached here. So if you just frame how you came after you reached the place, the next time when I tell you to go there alone, I'm 99% sure that you will be able to. Why is it so? The person accompanied you in both the first cases, right? Yet in the second case, you are likely to reach the place without any external help. Because you did not passively go, you actively involved your brain in route registering, right? So, this is exactly what might be happening with you all. You all are studying mindlessly, not recalling, and then you forget because your brain did not register it. So, what should you do? You cannot just take up a chapter within a stipulated time, read it, and think you have done your part. No, you did not do anything. You need to pause after 15 minutes and jot down the topics in your head, whatever you have studied. For a video of 2 hours, you need to pause the video in specific 15 minutes interval and at least be able to recall what the topics were taught. So, say for instance, this is the page of NCRT that I have just read. Then what I would have done is that after reading this page, I would close my eyes and then jot down few points that I have read. So, from my end, it would have been number one, the places that are mentioned, the underdeveloped countries in which protein energy malnutrition are common. Second point would be there are two protein energy malnutrition that is mentioned in this page. Number one is kwashiorkor, number two is marasmus. So, just because marasmus is a relatively shorter word than kwashiorkor, then I used to read it in such a manner that marasmus occurs in children less than 1 year of age because it's a shorter word, and kwashiorkor occurs in more than 1 year of age. Okay, so this is how you determine the age. Now, what I'll recall is that marasmus is such a disease where there is protein as well as calorie deficiency, but in kwashiorkor there is just protein deficiency unaccompanied by calorie deficiency. You can easily give a strong reason to it because the child after 1 year of age is not solely dependent on breast milk and the person takes calorie in the form of carbohydrates, rice, roti, etc. So the child is not having calorie deficiency along with protein deficiency. So only protein deficiency for kwashiorkor. Now comes the concept of edema. So where will you see edema and swelling? It will be seen in kwashiorkor. Not in marasmus, because in marasmus the body is in survival mode. It is already deficit of both the constituents, that is protein and carbohydrates. So there is fat breakdown and edema cannot occur in that case. Okay, so there is no edema in case of marasmus, but edema is seen in the case of kwashiorkor. So this is what you need to recall in your mind after reading a page. This was just an example from my end. Okay. Teaching an imaginary bunch of students can also be an option and it is also a very effective way of recalling. Okay. So after you yourself have studied, consider you're teaching this to someone who does not know anything, no prior knowledge of the subject. You teach to them, make them understand, and then if you are able to, then consider your job is done. You did study nicely. Okay. Now this brings me to the second segment of this video in which I'll talk about exam and question oriented study. So you cannot study theory in isolation. You have to bear the examination that you are going to appear for in the back of your mind. When your study starts becoming exam oriented, your mocks will start becoming familiar to you. Standing in this month of January, you all are not in a situation where you can read each and everything together once, then see the question, then understand the points which are important, and then reread again. So, better to see what the important points are, then read. So, I'll give you an example. Say, for instance, in organic chemistry, there is SN1 and SN2 reaction. So, if a person just reads textbook, the person will just study that SN1 is a two-step reaction. There's formation of carbocation, and carbocation stability determines the eagerness of a substrate to undergo SN1 reaction. Okay. And for SN2, they'll study it's just a single step reaction, and the reactivity order is just the opposite, and there's formation of inversion product. Okay. But NEET will ask you questions like, what will happen if 2-bromobutane reacts with aqueous QH? Here, if a person have just studied theory in isolation, person will start to think secondary halide, not very stable carbocation. So what if it starts to give SN2 reaction? Okay, then the person will do in that way. But a person who have seen the question before, knows how questions are asked, will read in a different manner. They'll know that we need to check reactivity of carbocation, we need to see what kind of solvent it is in, whether it's polar protic, whether it's polar aprotic, and will also keep in mind the reactivity, the strength of nucleophile, right? Here, nucleophile will be solvated, strength will be decreased. It is a polar protic solvent, so it will give SN1, and the product will again be a racemic mixture. So, all these things cannot be understood if you just read theory in isolation. So, if this was the month of May or June, I would have told you that yes, read theory once, however you want to read it, then solve questions. But now it is time that you see where questions come from, in what manner question come, and then prepare yourself accordingly. I'm sure that this revision process will save your time as well as increase your mock scores. Okay. So please have a look at NEET style question framing. Don't keep questions as surprise after the chapter is over. This is not the time for it. Last main thing that I want to talk about in this video is how after a mock you're going to analyze the paper. So what you need to do is that you need to classify your mistakes under few subheadings. The first subheading should be a concept which you do not know. Okay. The second subheading should be a question whose concept you are aware of but somehow forgot it. Like ऐसे तुमको लग रहा था कि ये तो याद था, हम तो कहीं पढ़े थे पर अभी याद नहीं आ रहा. Okay, something of this sort. And the third point will be a silly mistake due to time pressure or due to some or the other reason, OMR mistake and all those things. And the fourth thing will be something related to haphazard study. Like you see a question and you think that, I've read this also, that also. So that may be because of too many resources that you've referred to or solving too many unrelated MCQs. So what you need to do is that after every mistake, you need to categorize it. Then for category 1, that is those concepts you do not know, you need to sit with your book, the base level ones, not the short notes that you made, not the extra short formulae chart that you made. The base thing. For physics, the notebook that you had, your class notebook. For biology, NCRT. For chemistry, whatever resource you followed while studying for the first time. Okay, that resource you need to sit with, study like you're studying it for the first time, and then solve 10 MCQs, and then attempt the question the next day once. I think this will be good. Now we come to the second category, which is a concept that you have studied but abhi yaad nahi aa raha. For that, you need to refer to the note or the short note. Okay, just read it once, because just when you brush up, then it will again come to the surface of your mind and you can recall it easily. But what you need to keep in mind is you need to brush this topic up for at least 3 times, giving a 24 hours gap. Okay, so this consistent yet spaced brushing up will actually reinforce this topic in your head. I'm sure you'll be able to recall it. So this is the second category of mistake. Third category of mistake, which is maybe OMR error, some time crunch happened, and then you're seeing the clock again and again, and then you're getting terrified by it, and thereby you'll end up doing a mistake, some calculation error and all. So what you need to do is that for this, you need to write all these mistakes down in a paper and see it whenever you get time. See that you have someday made that kind of mistake, and this might repeat if I'm not conscious. So you need to make yourself aware that this is something that I can do and I will not repeat. That you are someone who has a tendency to fill wrong OMR. So I'll be conscious. Being conscious is the only way to come out of it, right? And don't keep on looking at the clock in your examination hall. That does not help. Do it in your own pace and just sometimes check your clock. I have seen students just stare at the clock as if that is the only thing that matters. No, your paper matters more than a clock, right? And the fourth thing, that is, overusing of different resource, over solving MCQs which are not relevant. This actually creates many cross communications in your head. This was the topic in some book, this was the answer in the other, and all. So please stop using multiple resource. For those, stick to one resource, the basic resource, NCRT and related. Okay. Last thing that I'd like to mention is that stop expecting linear growth. Every mock standard is different. Syllabus is the same, but there can be level difference and there has to be level difference. Every mock paper cannot be of the same level. Therefore, do not expect linear growth. It is not humanly possible to keep increasing your marks with successive mocks, right? There will be dips, there will be drops, and you'll get good marks again. So in the drop phase, what you need to keep in mind is that you need to keep working and hoping that this was a hard paper, you need to accept it. Even NEET 2025 itself was such an hard exam. I know that a bad mock carries a huge emotional load, but please do not enter the vicious cycle where you give a mock, you come home, you cry. Because of that crying, you cannot study for your next mock and your score further dips down. Please do not enter in the cycle. This is not how you're going to deal with a bad mock, right? A bad mock might try to break you, but honestly, how you analyze it and bounce back after matters so much more. So, all the best, and I hope each and everyone's effort gets reflected in their results. Thank you.